Here we have a sikh of the Rebbe from Chelik Aleph on Parshas Miketz. We shouldn't forget this Shabbat is going to be, Parshat Miketz is going to be after Chanukah already. And we're learning Parshat Miketz. We've been learning this also every day at 3 o'clock, the Chumash portion. So here we have Yosef is taken out. The Paro has these weird dreams. The whole thing is dreams. The whole entire Torah portion, the whole story of Yosef, it all begins with these dreams, these weird dreams. On one hand, dreams are we can't depend too much on dreams, but on the other hand, it's good to dream. If we don't have dreams, the dream basically that Yosef had, that first of all that the stalks, his brothers gathered up stalks in the field, and so did he, and all of their bundles, their bundles of his brothers bowed down to his bundle. And then after that, Yosef had a dream that the stars and the sun and the moon, that the 12 stars and the sun and the moon, they all bowed down to him. 11 stars and the sun, they all bowed, and his mother and the sun and the moon, they all bowed down to him. The sun and the moon representing his mother and father. So they bowed down to him. So the brothers started to hate him, and because of that, they hated him. They sold him down into Egypt, and he was in prison in Egypt, sentenced to life. And there, another time, dreams. The minister of the bread minister and the wine minister had dreams. And Yosef interpreted the dreams. The bread minister says, you're going to die. And the wine minister said, you're going to live and you're going to get out. And please don't forget me. And then comes this week's Torah portion. 2 years after that story. Kate Shanatayim Yamim. All of a sudden, Paro has dreams. First of all, he dreams that a bunch of good cows are eaten up by bad cows. And then he dreams that good sheaths of wheat are eaten up by bad ones. And he can't figure out what it is. And then they pull out Yosef from the pit. The wine minister suddenly remembers that Yosef interpreted his dream. And he pulls Yosef out of the jail. And he interprets the dream. And that's it. All of a sudden, Yosef said, the king said, you're the king. That's it. You're the king. I'm just, you call me king, but I'm not really going to be the king. You're the king. You do everything. Here, take my ring, take my this. What happened? Because of dreams. The thing was dreams. So let's see what happens. And Aned from Parshas Miketz, in the beginning of in the Parshas Miketz, and also in the Friedrich Seder, and also in the previous Torah portion, Vayeshev, the Torah tells us about dreams. The dream from Pharaoh in Parshas Miketz, when the dream from Yosef, and also the dreams of the minister of wine and the minister of bread in Parshas Vayeshev. The Allah Chalomos, all these dreams, they were reasons which brought to the exile of the Jewish people in Egypt. Right? You remember what happens. Yosef says to Paro, gather up all the food, 7 years of plenty. And after that, there's going to be a tremendous drought in the whole world. There's not going to be food anywhere in the world. And Egypt is going to have you're going to rule the whole world. You're going to rule everybody. Everybody's going to be your servants. And among the people in the world that don't have what to eat are also Yosef's father and his brothers. They don't have what to eat. And they have to come down to Egypt. And it's good for them in Egypt. They stay in Egypt. It's wonderful. They're treated very well. And then all of a sudden, in the book of Exodus, Paro dies, or it's a new Paro, or it's a Paro with the new ideas or whatever. And he says, let's use these Jews as slaves. So this was the beginning of the Jews coming down into Egypt, the source of all exile. Like everything else, everything that happens is by divine direction. Nothing happens by accident. Everything in the world has some sort of a purpose, a meaning. And everything in the world is interfaced with everything else in the world. And it's all some sort of a godly meaning, this whole thing. So if so, it must be obviously a big thing like this, the Jews going down to Egypt, a story that's written in the Torah, this must be very, memela, it must be understandable that this whole thing, the exile, which comes from the dreams, must be somehow or other similar to the cause. The exile, the result, which is exile, must have similar to its cause, which is dreams. The Sheikh is from Galus to Chalom. What's the connection from to exile to dreams? What can be understandable and understand it and verstehen in different ways. Okay, let's just take 1 second over here. A very interesting thing about the Jewish people, but Jewish people have this thing. First of all, the Jewish people still exist. That's the biggest, most outstanding miracle and revealed miracle that there is in the world, that God is with the Jews. Guys, I remember, I think I told you this before, but I'll tell it again. Every Friday, I go into this big marketplace and I have a couple tables, and I put tefillin, and I call Jews and tell them to put, anyway, a bunch of missionaries came over and they started spouting off their stuff. So I said to them, listen, leave me alone. I already heard about this. You're not going to convince me and I'm not going to convince you. So just, do me a favor and just, I'm sorry to say it, but just, drop dead. So, oh, how can you say a thing like that? We have the truth, we have this. So I said, listen, do me a favor and just get lost, get out of here. Don't talk to any more Jews because you're going to burn in hell. If you ever convince any Jew to leave Judaism, then you're going to burn in hell. What can I tell you? It's, you seem like nice guys, and there's no reason why but you can't mess with God's people. You can't. So they said, well, give us one proof that God is with you. So I said, here's the best proof of all. For 2,000 years, you people have been trying to destroy us in every single way possible. And here you are right now. And here we are, Jewish people, we're still here. Does that make any sense? They said, yeah. So I said, listen, do me a favor. There's 7 Noahide commandments. Believe only in God. That's the first one of them. Only that God is creating you. Don't believe in anything else. You want to believe in the Son of God? Then you believe in me. I'm the Son of God also. You can't believe in the Son of God. You can't believe in God's ghost or anything. You have to believe only in the Creator. He is the Creator who's creating you, and He's keeping the Jews in existence already for over 2,000 years against all odds. And they just turned away and they just left. That's a big miracle. But on the other hand, we have another very strange fact about the Jews. Exile. The Jews are in exile. The first temple was this. First of all, the Jews started off in exile. They were in Egypt. Then the first temple was destroyed. The Jews went into exile in Babylon. They lived there for 70 years. A lot of them didn't come back to Egypt, Israel. Then they came back to Israel, and the second temple was destroyed. Second temple was destroyed, right? Then Rome, exile. Jews are in exile, wandering around, like I told these missionaries, 2,000 years. In the middle, we have this weird story about Hanukkah. Here we're in the Holy Land, and we were in exile in the Holy Land. And it's the same thing right now. I mean, we have the Holy Land, and the government is not holy. They don't want nothing. There's no such thing as holy by them. There's no holy people. There's no holy Torah. There's no holy land. There's no holy commandments. There's nothing is holy. They say it's a lucky thing that the Arabs have a hold of the holy temple, because if the government of Israel had a hold of it, they would make it into an amusement park. Who knows what they would do? A museum. No such thing as holy. Therefore, all these ideas of exile are somehow or other compared to a dream. It's like a dream. What is a dream? Remember, we learned the mimer about this in Torah Or. Remember, that a dream really comes from a tremendously high source that can unite two opposites together. That a person can be a biggest sinner 1 second, and the next second he can be totally change himself. As chalom, that a dream comes from what's called koach hamadame. It comes from the power of imagination. Far stellunges koach. Far stellunges koach. It means that you make a picture, imagine things. Welcher vereinigt, which can unite two opposite things. Biz afilu pina bekupa lemachta. There can be a pill, an elephant in the hole of a needle. As oib erhat, it just translates it as oib erhat nor freer getracht wegen dem. It has to be that you thought about this. You thought about a needle before, and you thought about this, and it could be. For a while, there was the art, right, in the world. Like, I don't know, started, I guess, in the 60s or something like that. Art was like that. They tried to, make unusual forms and things and try to put all sorts of weird opposites together. And in any case, that's what a dream is. The time to Golos also is the time of exile. The Jews are in exile. Zucht sich im ois, it appears, ducht sich im ois, it appears as hat lieb dem Eibishter, that he loves God. And from deswegen, and nevertheless, hat lieb dem eigene Guf, he loves himself. Chach beide Sachen, because both things, seinen gleichzeitig, they are simultaneous, nit gemalt sein. It really can't be. Even though that both these things, you can't love God and also love yourself. Bis wann as wie es wird in the Zeit from art declared, like it is, what gets explained in another place, can liegen in taivus, a person can have all sorts of desires, do all sorts of sins, and even do right sins, go against God's will, and still really believe in God. And you see this, all the time, especially if you go out and put tefillin on people. In, on Fridays, the Rebbe started this right before the 6-Day War going on. There's Jews, especially in Israel, that they won't even say they're Jewish. It's very rare. In America, all the other places, right, a Jew will not say, I'm not Jewish. He'll say, leave me alone. In Israel, Jews will say, I'm not a Jew. No problem. He'll say, I'm not a Jew. And you talk to the person, and I know there are people, I stood in a regular place, they would say no, they would curse me out, right? And then after 3-4 weeks of 3-4 months, they would say, okay, I'll put on tefillin. They'll put on, sometimes we put on tefillin, they even cry, right? There's absolutely no logic behind it. I'm not threatening them with anything. I'm not promising them with anything. They just want a connection to God. Why not? But they're not doing it for good luck or for something like that. They don't believe in the whole thing. That's what they think. But in other words, simultaneously, they don't believe in God, they don't believe in anything, and at the same time, they're willing to do a commandment, and they're willing to. That's also the lights of Hanukkah is one big example. And we see in America and the other places, the most non-religious Jews, right? I haven't been there a long time, but as far as I know, Reform and Reconstructionist or whatever, everybody lights Hanukkah candles. I don't know if they make blessings, but they certainly like it. I think they do. I used to. I remember when I was young, maybe things changed now. We didn't do anything in my house. It was any sort of a commandment. My family, they were very nice people and wonderful, but Hanukkah candles we lit. We did maybe other thing, a little thing we used to, at least when my grandfather was alive, we had a Pesach Seder. I don't remember if we had from Desvegen. Nevertheless, that's what a dream is. A dream is uniting two opposites. That's the thing of Gullus also, uniting two opposites. A Jew can be opposed to God and love God at the same time. Firtar oy is dort in Torah or. So that's what it says in Torah or. That's the mimer that we learned. Zolman nid mena, you shouldn't think is because a person, after he prays, that he does exactly the opposite which he had decided and felt when he was praying is a raya. The proof is that this is a proof that his prayer was not, or his Torah and the mitzvahs, it's not worth anything. No, it's not so. The fact is, when he was praying and when he was learning Torah, when he was doing the commandments, he genuinely, 100% had love and desire for a God. But also at the same time, he desired also to do sins and go against God. How can this be? Because the source of a dream is from a very, very high place. And therefore, this is what lights up specifically in the time of the exile. Like it says over there in Long Line. That's why in the time of the Holy Temple, a person that would, let's say, would go against Shabbos, he would die from heaven. God would kill him. And nowadays, God is not killing anybody because people, they don't know. Everybody's confused, right? He can genuinely love God, and he also genuinely wants to drive his motorcycle on Shabbos. I know people that are like that. The declaring, therefore, is in service of the soul of man is what? By every Jew, there is a godly soul. And the godly soul is Olam Ol Gans. It's always complete and whole. Healthy. The Torah mitzvahs which a Jew does are eternal. The Olam Vo'ed, forever and ever. Dakegen, the 25th chapter of the Tanya. And Dakegen, they need Richtike Zachen, but on the other hand, the negative, the bad things, which a person does, Zainen Merinit but Zeitveilig, are only temporary. Because every Jew, Veddach Sof Kol Sof, in the end, every Jew is going to do tshuva. Bamela is Oich Itzter also now, Zainen, the Nitkain Dover Shel Kayama. Because the Torah and the commandments that a Jew does are eternal, that's godly. And things against the Torah, they're separate from God, so they're really separate from reality. So they really have no real reality to them. Torah and mitzvahs are not are constant, and things that are not Torah and the commandments, they're not, especially sins, they're not eternal. They're not, how do you say, constantly existing. When a zoy vinaros mechsavim, like it says, there's a thing which is called false rivers. Teichen velchet. There's a law in Para Aduma, in the ashes of the red cow that are sprinkled on a person that has become defiled by a dead person. The law is a person that becomes defiled by a dead person. A Jew that was in a tent together with a dead person, or he touched a dead person, he passed over a dead person. He can never go into the Holy Temple for the rest of his life. That's it. Whole rest of his life, he can never go into the Holy Temple. Unless there's sprinkled on him the ashes of the red cow. And this is in great length explained in the Torah. But one of the details of this red cow says that the ashes from this red cow has to be slaughtered in a certain place and burned. And then the ashes have to be put into living water. Living water. And living water means it has to come from some sort of a spring or even a river that never stops. And if it's a river that stops once every 5 years or 50 years or whatever it stops, that's called lying false waters, because it's not constant. The same thing, all of this world, anything which is done in this world for God is constant. It's connected to the source of life. But anything you do for yourself, so it's not constant. It's not connected to the source of life. It's connected to you. Right? And the day passes by, you even forget what you did. You forget the pleasures that you had 5 minutes ago. And therefore, can nid, they're ra, therefore bad, cannot, iber, vegan, chas v'shalom, they're tov. Therefore, the iber, vegan, right? Bad can never conquer good. It can temporarily conceal it, like we see the Holocaust and the Shem Yishmor. While air is nit kind davar shall kaim, because bad is not eternal. It cannot exist constantly. The Kagan, which is not the case. Good is always pure. And it always exists. In other words, we're living in a world, our eyeballs and our ears and our senses, right? They were, are not the source of truth. What we see with our eyes, what we hear, the whole crowd loves us, right? We have crowds of million people that are buy our books and buy our records and everything. And that's no sign that what you're doing is right, and it's no sign that it's true or it's successful. And it could be that a person that just sits alone in his house and he learns Torah, he does a commandment, does something good, that's eternal. And all the other things, poof, it's like a big wind that goes away. And this really is what's eternal. That's the whole idea of heaven and hell and things like that. But let's not deal with that here. That's not the point. The point is what? Doing something real right now, forgetting about the reward you get for it. Right now, what you're doing, it's really genuine and real. And if you're not, it's a waste of time. It's a waste of your energy. It's a waste of your life. Says the Rebbe, but that's a dream. In a dream, everything seems the opposite. Good things seem bad. Bad things seem good. In them is a raya, is da a mila in zman galasov and zman bias. Therefore, in a certain way, there's something better about the time of exile than it was in the time when the Beit HaMikdash was. How can you say something like that? We're praying every day for the Beit HaMikdash, right? We want to we want God to build the Beit HaMikdash. We have to serve Hashem in the Beit HaMikdash. What Bnei Yerushalayim? Says the Rebbe, good. You're right. That's right. There certainly is a big advantage in the time of the Holy Temple. What's the question? But there's also a certain advantage now. What is it? In the time of the Holy Temple, there was lit up the inner powers of the Jew, inner venixter kochos of the soul, love, fear, right? The understanding. There was prophecy. On oivdem is the hagbala, but on those things there's always a limit, a begrenzung. There were prophets that were lower. It says the prophecy of Moshe was the highest. And the Yeshaya, the prophet Isaiah, he was like a little bit less than that. And then there was the prophet underneath that, it was Yecheskel, and then there was Zechariah. There were different levels of prophecy, it says. So these things are limited. Therefore, in the time of the temple, Torah, Tameh, Nida, Reingain, and Mikdash, that's for the impure person cannot go in the holy temple. Like we say, when the Greeks went into the holy temple and they defiled it, that's it. No more holy temple. You couldn't go, you couldn't do any service. But in Zaman Galus, but in the time of the exile, there's lit up the surrounding powers of the soul. When in them and in this, there's no limits. Like it says, that God is with us when we are impure. And there was now in the time of exile, we see self-sacrifice. That was the whole thing of Chanukah. Self-sacrifice. That was the 8 anointed men we had before. In the time of the temple, there was no self-sacrifice. We saw what happened. The Greeks went into the temple, they defiled it. What did the Jews say? We're finished. That's it. No more temple, no more Judaism. The Greeks are the winners, right? They didn't have any power to go against this. They had no power to go again. What are they going to do? It says there was a few little Jews over there, there was 13 Jews, that they had what's called self-sacrifice. Those are the powers that are evoked by exile. That's above any of the internal powers of love and fear and understanding and Torah and commandments. The Horoah B'Poel from this, the teaching is like this. Nit wie der Welt, die welche haben, not like those people who make a mistake and think that the only possibility meglicher Weg is gehen mit mesuder dika avoda. The only possibility that you can serve God is everything has to be very, very orderly. From gringer to schwerer, from easy to hard. Und kol zaman is nit Fartig mit the ersten, if you haven't finished the first level, you can't go on to the second level. Was das Welt gewesen richtig? This might be correct if it was in the time of the temple. If everything was the way they're supposed to be in an orderly way, like in the time of the temple. But because we are now in exile and we are like dreamers, as ken men und darf men, we can and we must. Tan yeder avoda, everything with the service of Shem, which comes into your hand. Loit der anwesend, like it says, chataf v'ochel chataf ishte. I know people like this. I'm in contact a little bit with a person like this. They used to be in Bnei Brak. I hope to God that there's no more people like this. But they used to really, really be against Chabad. Whoa, just tremendously against the Rebbe. And more than these, leftists in America are against Trump. No comparison. These people would bring all sorts of, crooked, weird proofs and things like that. And they just couldn't stand it. It's really quite incredible. And they didn't like the whole idea of making Bali Chuvas and going into the street and this, because they said service of God has to be orderly. This was really, it stemmed way back from the opposition to the Alter Rebbe. But then you could say that people didn't know in the time of the Alter Rebbe. This is 200 years ago. They didn't really know what Chassidut is now. Now the people are just ignorant. They just don't want to know. But it doesn't make any difference. These are orderly people, and they think that life has to be orderly, and Judaism has to be orderly. And this whole thing of taking a non-religious person, all of a sudden flipping around that he becomes religious, this is incomprehensible. This is not the way we serve God. Says the Rebbe, that's exactly wrong. Now in the time of exile, we're like dreamers. When afilu der, and even that person, which is in such a state, by him it says, I efshar, I cannot start to serve Hashem until I do tshuva first of all. And even in the Tanya it says, nevertheless, paskat der Alter Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe says in the Tanya, Penim is the Torah, on the inside of the Torah, in the Shulchan Aruch, which is the revealed Torah. The Alter Rebbe wrote the Shulchan Aruch, as oich that he should learn Torah and do the commandments, because their vile is most of, even though that temporarily says he is giving power into the side of evil, because he's learning Torah for the wrong reasons, nevertheless, is doch zicher shalo yidach mimenu nidach. In the end, he's going to do tshuva. Und demelt vet euch sein Torah and his mitzvahs will bring zich mit him, the Torah, the holiness of the Torah of the mitzvahs will pull him out of the exile. And this is especially regarding the inside of the Torah, which Torah to Hasidut reveals. So what's the Rebbe want to say? The time of Hanukkah is like a dream. We're now in that time. It's like a big dream. Everything is opposite. Everything is upside down. But don't think that means that it's hopeless. Exactly the opposite. Because everything is upside down, that shows that in 1 second we can turn everything right side up. And one way we're in the lowest state, the lowest level of exile that there's ever been in the whole history of the world. The whole history of the world. I mean, here we have the land. It used to be the land of Israel was holy. Everybody knew the land of Israel was holy, right? There came people along and they said the Torah is not holy, right? What's this, Mendelssohn and these people, the Torah is not holy. The Torah is a wonderful book. Then there's people that came along and said the Jews aren't holy. The Jews are like everybody else, right? And now they came that the land of Israel is not holy. Right? They have a not holy government, and they have a not holy. They don't have to. not to go into the details, right? In the lowest state, they even made a war that says even a Jew is not according to the Torah. You can convert if your father is Jewish, you're Jewish. If a Reform rabbi, even if he himself wasn't converted properly, he calls himself a rabbi, he can convert you, right? Everything is upside down. Terrible. In Israel, they have these LGBT parades, and the whole land is filled with missionaries, and the army, they tie the hands of the army, and then they don't let them shoot back, and they don't let them, it's crazy, right? So a person could say, oh, such a terrible thing. We have to make war. We have to this. No, the Rebbe said it's like a dream. In 1 second, everything can turn around. We just have to make light, because inside of every Jew is a genuine love of God. Every single Jew. And that's the little bottle of oil that can't be touched, can't be defiled. The bottle of oil that's sealed by the Kohen Gadol. If he's got that, then why does he act? Why do they act against God? Why do they do? Because it's a dream. In a dream, everything goes. Everything goes. And just as now people can take over the Holy Land, and they can declare the Holy Land is no longer holy. It's a regular country, and we're afraid of everybody. And our enemies shoot missiles at us, and we don't even do anything back. Right? 5 years ago, they shot 4,500 missiles at us. The Hamas from land that we gave them. And we're still keeping them there. We're afraid of what the world will say. They shot missiles at us. Only God was protecting us. We did absolutely nothing to protect ourselves. Incredible. And nevertheless, God still loves us, and he protects us, and he's just waiting. And these Jewish people themselves, the same ones that are going against Hashem, they love Hashem, and they care about God, and they care about Judaism. They really care. Why don't they do anything? Why do they go against? Because it's like a dream. Everything is upside down. And just like in the time of Hanukkah, that a little bit of light pushed away a lot of darkness. And of course, God helps. God doesn't, what do you say? We have to do 0.1%, and God does 99.99%. And after he does that, we realize that we didn't even do 1%, that the whole thing was his. He did everything. And that's the idea of the dream. That's the idea of Hanukkah. A little bit of light pushes away a lot of darkness, but we cannot suffice with the light we made yesterday. We have to every day make more. Even though we lit up the darkness, it was a change, in quality that was infinite. Darkness to light, infinite. Right, from 0 to 1 is an infinite jump. From 1 to 2 is a quantitative jump. Nevertheless, we have to make that also. And with God's help, we'll light up the whole world. So this is the Sikha that we'll be continuing on tomorrow also. Okay, hope to see you at 3 o'clock, God willing, today with Mashiach now. Mashiach now. Chag Sameach. We're learning the Chumash. And Chodesh Tov, right? Chodesh Tov. This is the first day of the month of Tevis. Shalom Avracha. Mashiach now.